Hello again, this is UML Operator. All right, in this session, we're going to pick up where we left off in part 4 of requirements development using activity. In this session, we will talk about faster and more productive approaches to project delivery, which includes requirements management, test management, and more, using these model-driven capabilities to drive model-driven delivery. We have our basic framework set up for collaboration, for testing, for working through various activity diagrams, use case auto-generated diagrams, and we're going to build out our cover page for requirements management next so that we can very quickly get to these areas as we're working through the rest of the delivery life cycles. Now, building a cover page is simple. I'm in the requirements management namespace. I have a blank diagram with the same name. It does not matter what diagram type you're using here, all right? So you can use class diagram. Here I'm using requirements diagram type. That's fine. So what I do is on my main cover page is I want to copy, Control C, come over here, Shift and insert, just paste, all right? Don't want it as a new. Don't make any changes, I want the same title. To make this one stand out as requirements management, I simply go down to common elements, bring in a text item, and call it requirements management. All right, and something like that. And then I go to layout, and I want to make this Verdana. You all know that's my favorite font. I want it bold, and we're going to want it 12, right? Then let's size it a little bit, something like that. And then let's give it a color that stands out, something like that for now. You color, do whatever you want to do when you're building your cover page or cover pages. This way, if anything changes in the main, if I put an S here, or I change the name of this or put it in another language, it shows up in the linked, copy, paste, linked element. The same thing goes here. I can go in and make spelling changes, fix errors, add, delete, change it here. Look at that. It's the same over in the main. So that just makes it easy, and that's a tip. Now, I don't need that element there. I need it here because I don't need that element within my main cover page. And then the next thing I do is I'm in my requirements management. I'm going to bring in this diagram as a navigation cell. Drag and drop, navigation cell. I can pick a cute icon if I want. I'm not going to go with anything. Do something like that, and then go through and do the remaining elements. Then later on, if you want to come in as you're cleaning things up, right click, we're going to go to appearance, select navigation image, and pick navigation images, icons that are meaningful to the subject area. Then when you're done and happy with what that is, you can come in and lock it. Full lock, only you're the one that's allowed. That way it's locked and no one can change anything. People can very quickly get to your subject areas, launch your models, start your collaboration, continuous integration and continuous delivery, continuous deployment, right? Test-driven design, all that fun stuff, all right? So you can do that off the basis that we've formed so far. All right, so far we have created our requirements management capabilities and folder. We've set that we are going to have a requirements naming convention. We've started traceability between our activities and our use cases. We understand that every element has a requirement. We understand also that we have an opportunity to set requirement properties, but that's optional. We just need to get requirements dumped in at a high level, just the name. Don't have to get carried away with descriptions at this point. We understand that we can collaborate, all the team members within our Sparx SQL environment 24/7, 365. We've set up our testing strategy so that we're able to go in and quickly get access to the test cases that we're creating. And we've built cover pages to allow to get to and navigate around our delivery exercise. So I've shown you throughout these sessions, Alt Enter to open up the properties box for this. Go into requirements. You can build requirements inside each element, any element, and then later on externalize them. However, I really don't do it this way because Sparx provides, if we look over in requirements tooling right here, Sparx provides some extended requirements that you don't get when you're building your requirements inside your elements. So when you're building the requirements inside the elements and then you externalize them, you do not get them in that form. They basically come out and they are, and let's just open this up, they're functional requirements. But Sparx gives you a different functional requirement setup, and Sparx gives you other requirement types such as business, user, non-functional, architectural, implementation, regulatory, and security. And there's even more, but this gives you the ability to take advantage of, and then we'll just go to security as an example, find then all diagrams. We'll just go ahead and choose it out of here. Found it. When you open this up, Sparx gives you in tags, or I should say as tags, under a special Sparx EA requirements tagging. So you get the ability to add goals, policies, and priorities. You get tags, which I talk about tag values in another video, and you can certainly add tags automatically or manual to your elements. But these type of requirements, if I go to non-functional, and let's just go ahead and double click on it, and I'm going to find it actually in the activity diagram itself, so it immediately goes right to it. We use this requirement type for this action element within this flow diagram generated by a use case. And these requirements, to me, they're more powerful than the base requirement. So again, when you open up this requirement, you have a tab down here, EAREQ. And when you go to it, you can see in the non-functional, you have some metadata here, some tags that you can populate with intelligence for each one of them. So a non-functional requirement, we understand dealing with performance requirements, availability, configurability, all the way down to scalability, usability, and even set priorities. These are things you do not get in one of the basic requirement elements. So when you go into one of the basic requirement elements, there's no EAREQ properties down here. You just have tag values. And in here, you see a stability tag that we created that allows you to put non-functional or functional requirement stability in here and set those. But these other ones are more productive to use when you're doing your requirements. So let me show you an example of this in action. Let's go into the tailoring requirements, and we see that we've got for tailoring at the activity level, we've created a few requirements already which were internalized to this particular activity. And there is nothing for the use case. Alt Enter to open up properties, go to requirements. There are no requirements at the use case level. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to the use case. We haven't written those type of requirements yet. The activity diagram, and let's go to pan and zoom. Make this fit a little better like this. That's all the space that I need. And we're going to hit the hamburger up here. We're going to go to requirements tooling. Now we could set this for this tooling to be available at every time. You go to options, you can change the diagram type. In here you can set it to requirements, but we're not going to do that. It's pretty easy to hit the hamburger, find the requirement or the diagram type that you want to use, set it to that, and you get the tooling. So as I've stated, we need a requirement for each one of these elements, all right? And so right now we've got 7, 8 elements that are in here. And what we can do is we'll start with a functional requirement, and we know that this one is going to be related, so we're going to draw a realization from the starting point is the element, the ending point is the requirement. And when you're using traceability, you can very clearly see that the start implements the requirement, right? So that's how we draw the connectors. So we know that get profile, we have a functional, and we're going to have a security requirement on this one. And that is going to be realized. That's going to be realized, right? For get customer history, we're going to have a regulatory for privacy reasons. Now, the architect and the team may already understand this and do this. And when you have a get, you also have, you may have, or you should have a performance requirement, a non-functional requirement. So we're going to get ready and add one of those in, knowing that it has to be populated as well as a functional requirement. So we'll draw realization in this one this way, right? So all we're doing very quickly is we're going down here. We know that we need to have at least one requirement per element within our models. So these are going to be functional requirements, and we're going to draw realization and do something like this to give me some room here before I run out. And we're going to have a performance requirement, because in data science, we're trying to get as close to real time as possible. So data is coming in, we're processing that data, and then we're exposing that data to authorized subscribers and services to realize changes in behavior, whether it's demographic or it's psychographic, and mostly we're dealing with psychographic data, understanding the behavior of the customer, who the customer is, they may be changing, and so on. So we can start dumping in our requirements and getting ready for those concerns. So we know that here we're going to have a functional requirement, and I'm just going to wrap up faster here. And we know here we're going to have a functional requirement, and I'll do that. All right. Now, what about business requirements? Well, I'll explain requirement types in more detail in another video, but a functional requirement is both technical and non-technical. A business requirement is non-technical. A user requirement is non-technical, but certainly can span technical concerns. But when you get to users, you're also getting into security, you're getting into regulatory, and some other type requirements. So I'll explain these more in detail in a later video. So we've already started our requirements, and we know that there's a functional requirement at the end. All right, so now we have the basis to build requirements and start building those out. Now, the first thing I do is we don't get carried away. I'm going to open this functional requirement. The first thing pass you want to do is just populate the name. Just put in some active verbs in here as short as possible, all right? And then when you're coming back around in your second pass, you can clean this up. You can add in your naming and numbering convention for your requirements, and you can put in further descriptions. All right, I'm going to show you a tip that makes things go even faster. So we've chosen order processing. So we want to get in here and we want to start doing requirements. We haven't done anything yet here. And within order processing, we've created from the use case, we've auto-generated an activity diagram. Now I've gone ahead and changed the size and shape of the diagram outside of the default in here. So I gap some room above in my work area and below and in the middle to actually start adding some requirements. So this time what we're going to do, I'm going to stay in the activity tooling. Again, if I go to design, I go to options, I can change the type. I can change it to extended requirements, but I don't need to do that. I'm going to cancel out just for this point and show you. What I am going to do is I'm going to go to the hamburger again, menu, drop down menu. I'm going to choose requirements to get the requirements tooling to get to extended requirements, right? And then from here, I'm going to go to the settings tab. I'm going to go to settings in the reference data panel, auto names and numbers. And in this type, I want to choose the requirement type. So I'm just going to hit R for requirement. I'm going to find requirement type. And then again, we knew they were using in our convention REQ, R-E-Q, space. And then this is the fifth scope item, so 05, and then a dot, right? No space after the dot. I'm going to start a counter. 001 is the convention. We're going to go out to 3 digits. We don't believe we're going to go over 999, so 001. In the suffix, all I'm going to do is put a space because I want a space between the ending of this and the beginning of the name. I could certainly put colon space, but I am just going to do a space. Make sure you select apply on creation and then save and close. Now, when you bring in any requirement type in here, we're going to bring in a functional. Watch this. It auto numbered it, named it for us, starting at 001. So this functional requirement, and I'm going to draw realization traceability to this functional requirement, and I can get busy writing whatever that is. All right, so if I double click it, I have a space at the ending of the alphanumeric numbering convention, and I can start typing a short name in here. I can't do that when I'm building requirements inside the element. So if I open up the element and I go to requirements, I can start creating requirements here. I get properties, I get all the fun stuff, and then I can externalize it, but it's just a standard requirement type. Functional is by default, and it doesn't number it for you. It doesn't auto number it for you. So this is one of the reasons why I don't use that feature until it's, fixed, or maybe there's something I'm doing wrong. But I just like to start sketching out, because I know I'm going to need requirements for each one of the elements. I start sketching that out. Then I can simply drag and drop the requirement, the extended requirement type for each one of them as I'm thinking, as I'm eliciting requirements, all right? As I'm analyzing the elements that I'm writing requirements for. This way I can bring in a functional requirement, draw realization. I get all of the tooling and tricks that Sparx can do. It remembers the last one, so if I hit Control left click, it brought in another functional requirement, auto numbered it. You see it increment from 1 to 2, from 2 to 3, and I can start dragging and dropping these functional requirements in here. I'm going to have a functional requirement at this decision point right here, and I'm using realization because this decision is implementing, that's why we use this connector type, this requirement. So I'm just going to continue to either drag and drop it this way, or control click in the model, anywhere in the blank model, and it does the functional requirement type. And I'm able to do that very quickly for each one of these. Now you can auto name the internal requirements that you're creating. So I created a use case. We're in the requirements section. I started writing one and I saved it. It's not externalized yet. Let's hit new. Let's create another one for this test demonstration. And let's say login screen should be pop-up, modal, multimodal, whatever you want to say. And we're going to change the type on this one to display, and we're going to hit save. Next, let's move these externals. So they're not external right now. We're going to right click on here, move external, and we're just going to go to the same package they're in. That one's done, and this one's done. All right, let's go ahead and just hit OK to close this. And you'll see we have two requirements that have been externalized to the default package, and we want to number these. All right, so we're going to go to settings. We're going to go to settings. We're going to go to auto name and counters. We're going to hit R to get down this long list faster. We're going to find requirement. And the last requirement was set to this. Let's just make this one 6. We'll start at counter 0, 1. We have a space with a suffix between the number and the start of the name. And we're not going to click on apply on creation. We're going to hit close. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to go to the design tab, package panel, manage drop down, go to auto naming, and you'll notice there's something called requirement here. However, I don't see my requirements. I'm in the package. I don't see my requirements. Now this is hit and miss. I'm not sure if it's a bug. I really don't use this feature. So how you work around that, if it happens to you, is you just simply go into the stereotype down here in properties, and you got to do it for each one. We're going to check off or remove the stereotype. Check off or remove the stereotype, right? Now it doesn't matter where you are in this. Now if you go to manage, you go to auto naming, now you're able to open up, we're seeing our 2. I'm going to change all of them. You could, just pick one at a time. We're going to do all of them. Now this is very important. You don't want to mess this up. Update name, prefix auto name to current name. If you choose anything else, like overwrite the name, it is going to erase your requirement name and just put in the auto name and number. So be very careful because there's no undo here, right? You could move the current name to the note so you don't use it and apply, but why would you do that, right? I'll leave that up to you. Choose prefix auto name. We're going to go ahead and hit OK. Look at that. It numbered, starting at the number, the requirements that we went and did. All right, we're going to wrap up here. And in our next session, we're going to get into requirement namespaces, tooling that you'll be using, the pros and cons to different tools, breakpoints to support your analysis. And if we've got time, it'll probably be in another session. We'll get into user permissions, providing instructions, and then a lot more. So eventually we'll get into reporting. We'll get into a fun subject around model library. So I look forward to seeing you in the next session. Remember to subscribe, turn on notifications so you know when videos are published. Thanks very much for watching this, and happy modeling.